my days.
Yes.
I'm going to your channel.
Okay. We should be live here in a second. Okay. Yes. And we are live. So, welcome everybody to our Tuesday afternoon live stream. This week, I am your host, Dana Morningstar, and with me is Angie Atkinson. So, welcome, Angie.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, so happy to have you. And if you guys are new here for these live streams, this is something that Angie and I try to do every week, every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They go for about an hour or so. It can be a great place to ask questions and get support. And we alternate channels. So next week we'll be over on her YouTube channel, which is Angie Atkinson. So if you're interested in this, make sure you subscribe to both of us.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got a few people coming into the chat. Karina, Blue Moon, hello. I guess let's just jump into it, Angie. We were talking before we went live about stress
Mm.
and uh, kind of the challenge with stress is it's amazing how quickly that can something uncomfortable can become a person's new level of normal,
Mm-hmm.
and they think things just keep coming, and especially after a breakup or a divorce or any type of major pivotal moment in a person's life, it just can feel like, when is this going to end? And we might be experiencing a lot of stress, but we might have been experiencing it for so long that we're not even aware of how bad things really are. um, so I thought we could talk a little bit about stress, and for you guys listening to this, I'd be curious to hear from you guys, to share how do you know you're stressed? What kind of things emotionally and physically do you experience? And how do you handle stress? What works? What doesn't work? So, Angie, how about you? How do you know when you're feeling stress?
Well, I will find myself. I do the thing where I get stuck, and so I think because when I was going through the toxic relationship and all that stuff, my go-to was to numb out, as into I would always be like, oh, I'm going to my happy place, or I'm going to focus on, you know, something else. I would sort of wish myself out of there. And so mentally, I almost wouldn't be there. And that would cause me to get to that place where I felt stuck and I would feel like really tired. I couldn't do anything. Sometimes I would be sick to my stomach. I would get headaches, all that kind of stuff. It would be a lot of physical symptoms, but I couldn't always point out exactly when I was stressed. And still today, sometimes I'll have to notice I'm stressed because of the physical symptoms. And a lot of times, like, I'll get cluttery with the house. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'll feel stuck. I'll feel like I'm not inspired, that kind of stuff. And so I think um, a lot of that. And then, everybody has different cycles their body goes through. About 2 days a month, I think my life's about to end. and, and now that I've known myself as long as I have, I understand what that means. And I understand that I'll be fine in 2 days. So
Mm-hmm.
when I get there, I kind of work through it. But yeah, but I tend to get stuck, and sometimes I'm not paying attention to my diet. I do that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
how about you?
Yeah, that's really insightful. Yeah, I would agree with that. I can fall into doing comfort eating,
Hmm.
and I'll know when I'm doing comfort eating versus just kind of being lazy or making the wrong choices, because I might not even really want that food,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh, whatever. But it's just that quick pick me up that comes with sugar and salt and fat. Uh,
Yeah.
but then I just feel it doesn't lift my mood for any length of time.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think if I remember right, didn't you tell me that you sleep a lot during?
yes. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Oh boy. Yes, that's the worst. That really is the worst, because it's absolutely debilitating. If I get stressed, I mean, it just knocks me flat.
Yeah. And
And
I
mhm,
go the other way. I sleep not. I stay up too late and I don't sleep. It's interesting because it could go one of two ways, right, with the sleep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And same with eating,
Hmm.
it's changes in
Yeah.
eating and sleeping, like too much, too little.
Yep.
I guess really type of any imbalance
Yeah.
is worth it kind of examining, like what's going on here. If it's um even, I mean, a bunch of anxiety dreams,
Yeah.
like having anxiety dreams or nightmares every now and again, normal. If it's every single night, there's something more going on.
Yeah.
If it's, too much sleep, too little sleep, uh, addictions, you're doing, it could be exercise, anything that we're doing too much of or too little of, it's worth examining.
Absolutely. That's a really great point. The imbalances. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of times people will get physically sick. Like you mentioned, I think last week, your brother gets physically sick. And where you
Mhm.
do the sleeping thing and the eating thing, he tends to, doesn't he? Didn't you tell me that? Gets
Oh,
physically
yeah,
sick.
yeah. He I really believe that, he manifests stress in his body,
Hmm.
and, um, there's different, like, somatic disorders out there. Uh, they're generally thought to be more, like, fictitious,
Hmm.
that it's just kind of bordering on mental illness, but I really think that there's some people that experience stress in their bodies, and they truly do believe that it's certain areas that are causing them discomfort. So I would really enjoy reading more about that, and I think it tends to be people experience these physical symptoms when they're more like emotionally blocked.
Yeah.
And I would just be curious to know just kind of what the studies say out there, if it's more men that have this or women, or um, you know just kind of
Well,
what that's about.
yeah. On a related note, they say that, we carry trauma in our bodies.
Hmm.
And I know that the vagus nerve is a big, I think we've talked about this a little bit. The vagus nerve is a big part of that. And so there are certain exercises like you can do at home, self-help things like deep breathing or singing or humming or gargling or um, meditation. What's the other one? Oh, cold. Going out in the cold or having a cold shower, anything like that, kind of shocks your body back into it. And what it does is it stimulates the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is, of course, I'm sure you know, is attached to like your brain and your heart and all your organs and all the stuff. So they say that this is possibly a breakthrough in trauma. It's a Dr. Stephen Porges, polyvagal theory. I talked about it in a
Hmm.
recent video, and I think we talked about it too. But that's one of the things that I think is maybe related when we're talking about getting through the moments of stress. I've seen with clients, they get real moody and irritated, agitated sometimes. I have the same thing sometimes. Um,
Hmm.
and I tend to feel if I, like sometimes I'm not even aware that I'm stressed until I notice myself feeling like I'm drowning, like metaphorically, like I'm overwhelmed. Yeah, I don't know how to swim to the top, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and I think those um, I notice people feel like lower self esteem when they're stressed out sometimes, and like you said, all those physical symptoms as well. Um, you even see people now. Some people just I think naturally, like genetically, do this, but people who are stressed sometimes will do things like grind their jaw in their sleep or you know what I mean,
Yep.
stuff like that, and so they need a bite block or whatever. There are a lot of different physical symptoms. Oh, and then there's like I have a little list of things I put together
Hmm.
before. There's the being forgetful and disorganized, which I kind of mentioned the cluttery thing, but I definitely have short-term memory issues, especially when I'm stressed. And when I'm not stressed, I almost don't have any of those. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, making bad choices, all that stuff, all connected to stress. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. When we go um, into that fight or flight mode, which is stress,
Hmm.
chronic stress. Some degree of stress is beneficial. It keeps us problem solving and moving forward. It keeps our brain active. It's kind of a sign that we're alive. If we
Yes.
have problems, basically. But if it becomes major problem after major problem, and it just keeps coming, we're not meant to live under those circumstances. And it's that's why a lot of the polyvagal theory is so beneficial, because it helps to shift the body from that fight or flight mode back to rest or digest, which is
Yes.
our natural state of being, when everything kind of calms down and we're able to be present in the moment. But when we're in that fight or flight mode, we are in a scramble, we're in a panic mode. Our logic and critical thinking part of our brain goes off. Well, I shouldn't say completely goes offline, but it's significantly diminished. I mean, this is why under tremendous amounts of stress, people do irrational things. They run back into a burning house to save a photo album. They
Yeah.
run out in traffic to chase after their dog.
Yeah.
Things that on the surface, you know, don't make sense. Like, oh my gosh, that's gonna, kill you. But we're just thinking about in that moment of taking action. And that's I think you're absolutely spot on too about them, our external environment being very reflective of our internal environment. And that's one of my big signs as well, as noticing, oh my gosh, it's weird. It'll be like one day I'll just see my car clearly. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to vacuum my car out, or
Yeah.
what is going on?
Yeah.
Um,
It
eh,
is interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
I'll do that. I'll walk in my front door and I'll be like, wait, what? And then I know, okay, it's time to get it together. Something will be off, like sometimes you set things down and you think, I'm gonna take care of that. And when you're stressed, you don't always take care of it and it becomes clutter. So yeah, I get you. Yeah.
yeah.
So as far as reducing the stress, what are some of your things that you do to kind of, when you recognize it, how do you start to work through it?
Um, I've been trying to make time for really making self-care a priority instead of
That's
like an event.
yeah.
Like something that occurs on a daily basis,
Yeah.
really. And I think it's also helped me to notice the little things that I now view as self-care.
Hmm.
Whereas before I would view self-care as like, okay, I'm going to get a massage. Well, okay, how often does that happen? Maybe once every couple months, maybe. Uh,
Yeah.
and so then it was, okay, every Sunday I'm going to allow myself 4 hours to be creative and paint, or um, just design things, just be creative.
That's awesome.
And then it was, okay, uh, on a daily basis, there's some podcasts I really enjoy listening to that are about writing. So it's kind of a totally different thing. So I just really savoring that moment. I'll have a cup of coffee and I listen to my podcast and I just really enjoy that. Whereas before it was just part of my morning routine and I would just kind of speed through it and I wasn't enjoying the moment. It was just part of my routine.
Yeah.
So I think slowing down and noticing the little things that we really enjoy, that do allow us to, um, kind of just enjoy the day, enjoy the
Totally.
journey.
Yeah. I do I one way that I do self-care every day is I take at least 1 hour where I don't talk to people. And that sounds so stupid, but I'm sure you can relate. You get like I love what I do for a living, but when I'm done for the day, I'm like, okay, nobody talk to me because I talk to people all day long and listen to people all day long. And then my kids are like, hey, what about us? And so I talk to them, and then so I have to take that hour and I take it wherever I can get it throughout the day. Like,
Hmm.
if I can get it in the morning after they go to school, or maybe in the afternoon before they get home, or in the evening when they go to bed, whatever it is, I try to take at least 60 minutes in a row where I just don't talk to anybody. And that is maybe I'll be doing nothing. Maybe I'll stare at the wall, you know, maybe
Hmm.
I'll do something creative, but whatever it is, I just don't talk to people. And that helps me sort of regroup. I consider myself like an empath. And so when you absorb other people's energy a little bit, you know what I mean? And
Oh yeah.
and you put a lot of yourself into, I know you do too. We put a lot of ourselves into what we do. And so that really, if you don't take that time, for me, if I don't take that time to like recharge, then I can't function like a normal person and I will be stressed. And that is one reason my stress levels are lower, is that 1 hour a day. you know. Another thing, this is going to sound silly, but this changed my world. And it was that I realized I cannot stress myself or worry about things I have no control over. And I know that sounds so simple, but do you know how many years I spent feeling incredibly stressed out over things that I literally could not control or have any control over whatsoever? It's like stressing about the rain. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You can't
Yeah.
control it. And so, get an umbrella. Well, now I have a proverbial umbrella that helps me not stress about I just don't stress about things I can't control, and I have to sometimes remind myself that I can't control that thing. But it significantly lowers your stress levels overall. You know what I mean? If there's something I can do to affect the outcome, then I need to do that stuff. But if not, I have to step away from it, like, mentally, and not even think about it because
Mhm.
you can't. And it sounds so simple, but when you really sit down and you think about what kinds of things we stress about, if you look at, for example, politics, what can you do? You can vote, you can speak on it, that's it. And I don't really care about politics very much, so I try not to even focus on that at all. But we really only have so much control. And so if you people sit around and get really stressed out about politics, you'll notice I never talk about politics on any of my social media stuff, because I don't I don't care about politics. I will love you if you're Republican or Democrat or whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I don't worry about that. I don't stress about that. But a lot of people have heart attacks over politics. They're not even a
Yeah.
politician. It's just, yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I think that, but you bring up a really valid point about, oh, I think news and politics and things like this, where it can feel important. Well,
Hmm.
we need to stay informed about current events
Yep.
and all of this. But, the a lot of the news is really fear based, or it's designed to provoke and anger
Right.
people. And
That's
listening
right.
to that day in and day out, over and over and over throughout the day, even though we might find it interesting, it is important to take a break from that and just turn that off, or turn the channel to music or something completely different, and just relax a little bit, because man, that kind of stuff can really get a person's blood pressure up, and there's only
Yes.
so much that we can do, and worrying doesn't help,
Right.
you know? So,
Absolutely. Yep. It is and I think it's so easy to um, forget that we can't control something, you know, even when it's like, here's another example. So let's say that you go to a job interview, you get the job, except you have to have all these background checks and all this other stuff. And now you're going to sit around and stress for 2 weeks until you hear back from the company. And people, I've actually done this in
mhm.
myself, and it was dumb. I felt sick for 2 weeks even though there was no problem. I knew logically there was no problem, but I was worried, well, what if I ate a poppy seed bagel?
Right,
Or
right.
whatever. But it was fine.
Yeah.
And so but I felt sick for 2 weeks about it, worrying about what was going to happen. And of course, 2 weeks later I got the call, I got the job, everything was fine. But because I had mentioned to someone at my previous company that I was basically getting ready to take this other job and I was going to turn in my notice, the previous company was like, they decided that was a competitor and they walked me out. And so, like, if I didn't get that job, I was screwed. You know what I mean? So
Uh-huh.
yeah, that was rough. But anyway, yeah. So um and then other things people sometimes find, I think, learning how to say no to people,
Yes, that's a big one.
right? And it's so, I think, for us especially, uh, a lot of us tend to be people pleasers, and I'm not just talking about you and me, I'm talking about our whole
Mhm,
community, recovery community. um, it's real easy for us to get to do the obligatory, okay, or sure. We don't think we can say no, and then I think that the same people that force us to say yes are the same people that stress us out sometimes. So maybe minimizing contact with people that stress us out on a consistent basis is helpful.
mhm.
um, and then one more thing I want to throw in here. I am a big proponent of the bullet journal. I don't know if that's a thing for you, but with my ADHD brain,
Mhm.
it really helps me. And so the bullet journal, one of the things I tend to have a problem with is, 87 things I want to get done today. Well,
Yeah.
that doesn't work. So one of the things I've been trying to do lately is three top priorities for the day. And then if I can't, sometimes I'll get more things. A lot of times I'll get more things done because sometimes things take a minute and sometimes they take an hour, you know,
Mhm.
but I'll have that and then I'll have my ongoing to-do list or whatever. And I think that's helpful to kind of have more realistic expectations of what I can do in a day. And also with something like a bullet journal, you're keeping track of all those things that are on your someday list or your next week list or whatever. And so you can kind of prioritize a little better. I think it helps me stay more in control. Do you
Yeah,
have any, do you do something like that?
I do. And you're absolutely right. And I think it helps too to have, when we're writing it down and we're able to flip back and kind of track it,
Mhm.
it can help to see progress.
Yes.
Because when we are feeling really anxious and scattered, it can feel like a lot of
Flailing.
activity and not a lot of productivity.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes that can actually be the case, but it can be helpful to, and we can feel like, I'm not getting anywhere, especially if like with us, where we've got a million projects going on and we're doing 10 different things at once and we're only moving, 1 degree forward with 10 different things. It can feel
Yes.
like we're not getting anywhere. And then we get burned out and overwhelmed, but really we've been doing a lot. It's just been diffused energy instead of focused on one thing.
Right. And on that same note, journaling in general, I think is a godsend for stress, just like
Mhm.
writing down your feelings. And also just one of the things that I know I tend to do because of what I went through is to bottle my feelings, to shut them down all the time
Uh-huh.
and be like, "Oh, I'm fine. It's cool. It's cool. Everything's good." Well, one of the things that was the biggest mistake I made in recovery in the beginning. It was because I thought I needed to be fine all the time. And so like when I first left my ex-husband, I was like I was like in desperate tears, like just I couldn't control myself. And my mother said to me, who we later learned was a narcissist, said to me, these are the choices that you have made. You're a single mom now. You need to get it together. Da 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 da. You don't have time for this. Get over it. And so what did I do? I shoved my emotions down and I got real mean for a minute, not to my kid, but to other people who I
Mhm.
saw in that same kind of crisis. I would be like, get over it. And that's not healthy.
Yeah.
That's not, you know what I mean? And so now what I tell people is this is a mistake that I made. And one of I think the biggest, most important things for not only recovery, but stress management and everything else is when you have feelings, acknowledge them and feel them and let them flow through. You know what I'm saying? Don't
Mhm.
don't live in them, but if you're stressed out, like sit down and figure out, is this an emotional stress? Is this something that I have, I could be doing different for myself? Or is there a situational thing happening here? Like, you know what I mean? Because there are sometimes little tweaks we can make that could change everything. But if we don't allow those emotions to flow through, we're never going to slow down enough to actually try to fix the problem. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Well,
Yeah.
and the kicker with that is these emotions, even if we're bottling them, they don't go away. They just come out in a different way.
Yes. And
And
never a good way.
never a
Right.
good way. Right, right. It comes out in a more destructive or generally a more destructive way, but ironically a way that we are more comfortable with.
Yes.
So if a person's not comfortable with getting angry, they might drink or they
Yeah.
might eat. Or if they're not comfortable with getting sad, they might get angry.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Or yeah, worse habits even. I mean,
yeah,
you see people numbing out with drugs or alcohol, like you said, gambling, shopping, eating, all these things that literally in excess can ruin your life. I mean, and your
yeah,
health. You know,
yeah.
it is so important to be aware of self-aware enough to see the stress and work through it and do what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Right, right. And here in the chat, JJ is saying, different people hold their stress in different areas of their body. And for her, it's legs. And a friend of hers had ulcers that he held in his stomach.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that whole self awareness piece of, um, you know, um, everybody's different. Everybody holds stress in a different way. So figuring out what where do we hold stress? Like you said, some people, I had a friend of mine who was clenching her jaw. She wasn't
Mm.
grinding her teeth, but she was clenching her jaw. And she ended up getting Botox in her jaw to loosen the muscles because her
Oh, wow.
jaw muscles were getting buff.
Yeah.
I mean, it was changing the shape of her face. I mean, it was really intense.
I've
So
actually done that too. Yep. Maybe
yeah,
not to that point, but yeah.
yeah, so thinking about how, because everybody's different, how do we handle stress? How does each person handle stress? And then I think also checking in with ourselves of what is the most stressful thing that we're going through right now, and being honest, because there, I think there is so much. We often minimize our stuff, thinking, oh well, I should be over that, or that shouldn't still be an issue, or that that shouldn't be a problem because compared to so and so who's dealing with whatever they're dealing with, I have minor issues compared to other people.
Yeah.
And it can be real easy to not see the significance of what we're struggling with because we keep minimizing it.
Right.
So being honest with ourselves about, yeah, you know what, this is a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And don't that is a really really good point you made for this community especially because we do. I mean, I don't know about you, Dana, but I grew up being told my feelings were not valid.
mhm,
And so if I had a stress or a problem or a thing I needed to deal with, I was told to shut up and get over it. And that continued until I was an adult.
yeah.
And so that you're absolutely right. We do tend to minimize it. We have a high threshold for things we shouldn't. And it is so important to slow down enough to recognize a your feelings are valid. You are legitimately stressed or whatever it is, and you do have to, take it seriously. It really can literally kill you if you don't
Yeah,
do that. Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy.
absolutely. Well, in here in the chat, there's another comment from you and I who says, I go right into freeze mode. I disassociate and have panic attacks when I'm stressed
Yeah,
because I feel overwhelmed due to the learned helplessness. I immediately hide inside to protect myself or I become confused.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yep, I've done that, and I still, like I said earlier, I still have that where I kind of numb out. I dissociate. I just go blank, or I get real into something like like I'll like this weekend. I wasn't even very stressed out, but this weekend I spent the whole weekend working to the point that I could barely pull my head away from the computer, and it was just that's another story. But
Hmm.
it was productive though.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's a challenge, I think when, because I struggle with that too, is, when you really enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work, which is its own can be its own problem because
yeah,
then you don't, next thing you know, 12 hours, you've been doing something for 12 hours and you're not allowing yourself that time to take a break. That was one of the things, another thing that I've started doing in the past year is really making it a point, um, to stop talking about work stuff.
hmm,
Um, I try to stop talking about it around 8 o'clock at night.
that's smart. I should do
And I
that.
just don't check Facebook. I don't check email. I don't want to talk about stuff that's going on. I just need time to decompress and and just think about completely different things, or else I just get too overwhelmed with
Totally get it.
everything.
Yeah, and that's similar to my 1 hour a day thing in a way. I mean, because I try really hard not to work during that hour, and if
Mhm.
I do, it's something not directly connected, like it's putting together emails or it's, something that's not so on topic,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could dig it.
Um,
Tell me.
here's a question from Blue Moon in the chat who says, well, what do you do to start lifting yourself out of a high stress level? Where do you start? With overeating, oversleeping, all of it?
You know, I think for me, it's first the recognition of the issue. And then, one thing that really works for sort of switching it up is a pattern interrupt of some sort. So you can like brush your teeth or take a shower or go outside and or a different room in the house or run around the block or do some jumping jacks or turn on loud music and dance to it because I'm a nerd and I do that. Even better, sing along and get your polyvagal thing going. you know,
Mhm.
but any sort of like pattern interrupt, I think is the beginning of because you get stuck And so like for me, if like my house is kind of cluttery and messy or something, maybe I'll tell myself, okay, I'm gonna get out of this. I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna go clean off that table over there, you know, and I'll take 2 minutes and clean off the table, and then I'll suddenly feel like I'm okay. Or I will go out on the front porch, or I will get in the car and go somewhere else just for a little while. Anything I can do to sort of shake up my space and my energy. That is the first step for me almost always. Sometimes I just have to get up and move. How about you?
Yeah, I would say focusing on what you do have control over and realizing that, like, just like you're saying, it's the little things, it's not necessarily like one big thing, but it all has a compounding effect, which is great. So, um, you know, allowing yourself an extra 10 minutes in the morning if you're always running late, or allowing yourself to listen to like a guided meditation or something at night, or to read for 10 minutes before you go to bed, or um, um, to make your bed in the morning, or thinking about setting a timer for 20 minutes and cleaning out your car.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think just getting started
Hmm.
and building that momentum can really, really help, because I
Truth.
think when it's across the board, I'm not eating right, I'm not sleeping right, everything's a mess. It can become so overwhelming that it's hard to know where to start. But the reality is there's no wrong place to start. It's just to get going. And then once that feeling of overwhelm, which leads to procrastination,
Yeah.
once you're able to break through that, you know, it, it just is, it's so much easier. That momentum continues.
Totally agree. I always say just do one thing. And another thing that you
Mhm.
said that made me think of something you said, allowing, and that is it's one of the, and this is kind of about prevention as well, but something that I've always said is make allowances for yourself. As in, nobody's perfect. We all have little things that we're not like great at. So maybe let's say if you hate to clean the house and you can afford it, you hire a housekeeper once a week or something. Or maybe, you trade with your neighbor and you babysit, they clean your house, or maybe you have your kid do it and you give them some sort of non-financial reward if you can't afford to pay someone, you know what I mean, or whatever. Like, I'm thinking teenager, by the way. I'm not thinking 2-year old because I have a 12 and a 16-year-old at home still, for those who don't know. But whatever, like, or if and that was a bad example, but or like I said, for myself, I have to give myself an hour a day to decompress, and that is just what I do as self-care. And also, it's a stress prevention thing. So recognize if you have little quirks, let's say, I don't want to say flaws, let's say quirks, and
Mhm.
you need certain allowances made for you. Make those allowances for yourself because you're important and you deserve that. Do little tiny things to give yourself that extra room that you need, or that extra space. And I'm not speaking about, I'm speaking metaphorically here because but yeah. And so, like, let's say if you have a job that you have to commute to and you have a 2-hour commute, you know well, maybe you get audible books or something in the car, and you listen to books on the way home if you're not a big car singer like me. But I will tell you, car singing, very, very high in stress relief. um, anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have, I was just gonna see if I thought I saw a question. Um, or do you have a question?
Let's see. Let's jump into the chat here from Xiao Yu.
Mhm. Xiao Yu. Okay, I kept saying Xia Yu. Okay, keep going.
Yes. I was saying she lives in China. Her parents want her to get to know a guy for engagement purposes. So she said yes. But she's feeling really unhealthy and broken and unprepared for a relationship. She's going to college, but she's feeling the pressure because they had made comments, basically the younger the better. It, you don't want to wait till you're too old to start trying to find a husband. So there's that kind of pressure, social pressure with age and cultural pressure. And it sounds, well, I mean, Xiao Yu, I guess I would say it sounds like you know what's best for you, that you're feeling unprepared for this and that you've got a lot on your plate and you need time to heal. Uh, w- what do you think about? I mean, could you tell your parents, now is just not a good time and maybe revisit the idea in 6 months? Or can you, um, I don't know culturally how that works with getting to know a person for the purpose of marriage. Spend time if you could just spend time with him with no pressure, if you could just, you know, get to know him as a person without any expectation. I don't know, Angie, what are your thoughts?
That is a really tough situation because of the cultural pressure.
Mhm.
Because I don't know what I'm not sure what you're allowed to do. Jayu as how do you sha you, right?
I say "Shaw you," but I'm not sure if that's correct.
Well, somebody spelled it Jack Lumen, I think, spelled it out phonetically for me once, and I was saying it right for that whole session, but now I don't
Okay.
recall. Anyway, I think you're right. I think it's Shayu. I think it's upsetting that you have to go through any sort of arranged marriage at all. I'm trying to see if she gave us any more comments on um, Shayu. If you're still here, let us know. Are you allowed to say that you're not ready and that you need some time? Will they allow you to see this person without pressuring you? Um, I think those are important questions to ask here. And I mean,
Mhm,
I wish I could. I don't even know if I have any real good advice to offer without that information. I think ultimately, working on stress management yourself, but she said she's going to college, she's trying to do all these other things. I mean, I hate the fact that she's being forced into this, actually. I feel a little mommy about it. I kind of want to go and help
mhm.
her out.
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's a really hard thing. And I just want you to know that I feel your stress and your feelings are real and legitimate. Maybe you could talk to your parents, whichever parent maybe you feel a little closer to, and ask them to give you some time to finish school, at least, if that's what you want to do. Um,
Mhm,
and then stress management in the process, try to take care of yourself, do some self-care any in your spare time. um, it's high pressure, I know it is, and I've heard a lot of horror stories from that stuff. And I'm just really sorry that you're stuck in it right now.
and she's saying here, she said her concern is that she's said yes, that she does want to get to know this man, and that she feels she can't go back and say no, that it would not be right. She doesn't want to mess with people's feelings. And, I can understand that, but I think moving forward and potentially marrying somebody when you know that you're not ready and that you have all these other issues to work through and stress and everything, that would really be messing with somebody's feelings.
Yes, and also potentially putting your own life on a track you don't want to be on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would
Absolutely.
One of the things, and I will say this, here's my advice. Sometimes we have to be uncomfortable for a period of time in order to be okay. And what I mean is,
Mhm.
it's really hard for us to sometimes say, look, I'm not ready for this, or I don't want this, or whatever, because it feels uncomfortable. And sometimes if we push through the discomfort for a short time, then we're rewarded with a much longer time of less stress. So maybe you just need to put up with the discomfort long enough to talk to your parents and say, I'm just not ready. I don't mind, meeting with this person and getting to know them a little bit, but I'm so busy with school. I'd really like to finish, blah, 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 whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, Shao Yu, the way that you phrased it too is good wording when you
Hmm.
do talk to your parents to say, you know what, I'm worried now that I've said yes, I can't go back and say no. I have all of these unresolved things with school and my own stuff that's going on.
Hmm.
And I don't want to mess with people's feelings, and I don't want to commit myself to a path that I am not certain is right for me. So
Absolutely agree.
basically what you just said here in the chat, I would I would think that most people, even if they don't agree with it, they could still respect that.
That's a valid point. Yeah. Yep. I have a comment from Mischievous Kitty about her stress care, which I think is good. My stress self care is plants, gardening, coloring, crafting, music, walking, home cooked, planned meals with intention. That's a great list. I just wanted to share it.
Mhm.
you know. Anyway,
Yep.
um, yeah, but Jayu, I agree with everything that Dana said, and I wish you the very, very best. Please let us know how it goes, whatever you decide. Do you have a question for us, Dana?
Um, no, I just wanted to follow up. She also made the comment here that she mentioned she didn't want children, and they said that she is not allowed to reject having children. And again, I don't know how well, I guess, culture aside, I would play that scenario through. So if your parents are going to be that involved in your life that they're dictating, who you're going to marry, and um, if you are going to have a child, how does how do how does that play out for you?
That's
And is this something that you're willing to give other people this much say? And are you willing to live with the consequences of that? And if you're not okay with that, then what are your options?
yeah, that's difficult.
It is difficult, but that's really what it boils down to, is either you follow your parents' plan for your life or you don't. And if you follow your own plan, either plan is going to have consequences.
Yeah,
So it's going to be figuring out, okay, well, what are you looking at culturally and um, situationally? If you're living with your parents um, and this is the culture that you're in, then what happens if you don't go with that? And if that means that I don't know, I'm just saying, if that means that you would have to move out, if it means that um, you know they would disown you or whatever happens, then what would that look like? Because certainly you're not the first person that's come to this crossroad. So um,
yeah,
how do other people handle this, and how would you handle this, and are you prepared to live with the consequences either way?
yeah. It's really cat Dan Durham says trigger. I feel the same way. It's about the not allowed thing. I agree. I don't know. Again, I don't know how deep it goes and how much control they really have. But if they, I agree with Dana. I think that sometimes maybe just choose the lesser of two evils.
I would
I
say figuring out what you can live with long term.
valid point. Better
I
way to
mean,
say it.
because you're the one. I can understand, I can understand to the extent that I can understand having that level of cultural pressure and um, expectation.
Yeah,
But I know it's a totally different thing to actually be living in that, and there can be major consequences, you know. Um, it's not an easy situation to be put in, but it's something that, if I were you, I would just try to think through. And if you're comfortable talking to your parents about it, talking to them. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with your decisions,
yeah,
regardless of what culture you're in.
yeah. I've had a couple. The reason that I'm kind of tight-lipped on this, I've had a couple of clients from China who
Mhm.
probably are not supposed to speak to me, who I worked with, and essentially it was just about. In fact, I had another client from another country, but in the Arabic side of things, uh, where they don't have control over those. I don't know all the details of everything, but I'm just saying they basically told me they couldn't make a choice that their parents didn't approve of. And one of the people I worked with was actually in a home where she was literally, because she was divorced, she was forced to live with her parents as like a 40-year-old woman because that's the law in that country. And
Mhm.
then if she chooses to get remarried, she has to leave her children with her parents. I mean, that's the law. It's difficult for us as Americans and British people and Australians to really get our head around the fact that is legally, that's the law. That women
Mhm.
in some countries are minimized. I don't know all the laws in China, and I'm not pretending that I do. Um, did she say she was in China, or am I just assuming that?
No, I believe she is in China.
Okay, yeah. So yeah. Oh, I love what she just said. She said, I'm trying to break free from all of the control things. She said, I want to be independent. I do not want to live under a shadow of a man. Stay in school, sister. That's finish college. Start there if you can. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'd get a plan for what would it look like for you to really own your own life, and um, getting clear on, really what you want to do, and not getting married because there's pressure. I mean, really, it's again, it's so difficult because there is such a cultural difference here. Um,
Yes.
but it's a major. I mean, when you get married, it changes everything, and your life is really not your own.
Yeah.
So, you're connected to this other person and them to you,
Yeah.
and it just changes. You've got to work as a team in order for it to somewhat function, and, um,
Yeah.
so,
And I
yeah.
think if you're looking at like most, I want to say like Western women, if they're in college and their parents are trying to hook them up with somebody to get married with, a lot of them are going to be really offended. And some of them are even going to go on Dr. Phil about it. You know what I mean? They're going to be, are you kidding me? This is control, you know? So that's why I think it's so, I'm not saying everybody, I know there are probably some people who do need to marry within their circles or whatever, probably people wealthier than myself, but, um, if we're being honest, but, but I think in general, the idea of being that controlled by a parent and pushed into a marriage would be offensive to a lot of people in this country. And I'm not saying it's offensive. I'm saying cultural differences. And so I don't want to give advice that cannot be used, I guess is what I'm trying to
Mhm.
say. Oh, Tara Doherty says in South Korea, parental rights are almost 90% the case in divorces because the child is on the man's family register. Also, South Korea happens to have laws that don't favor reports of abuse. Oh my goodness. Goodness. Um, oh, and Mo Cowboy adds that not meeting cultural expectations, there are so many consequences, often shunning to various degrees. And I think that's valid as well. Yeah.
Yep, and that's a really wonderful comment from Steffi here, who says, "Shao Yu, I so admire your independent spirit, my dear. You are amazing and inspiring. I'm so sorry that you're going through this, and I pray that you get the support you need to make the choices that honor you." Yeah,
Plus one, I'm with her on that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's powerful. Yeah.
it is.
Whew. Boy, I tell you. So I do think that I think this is a rough thing. Okay, while we're here, you guys, I think we have about like 12 more minutes. So if you have questions, get them in now, because we're running low on time. um, anyway, yeah. So uh, regarding the stress thing again, I think I thought I saw something in here that somebody said that was really good about that. Uh, anyway, okay.
Somebody made a comment and I just lost it, but they said something along the lines of, oh, here it is. Teresa said, self-awareness is a daily practice.
Yes.
I really like how you phrase that. I agree completely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so interesting how these concepts, when we first get exposed to them, we view them as, um, either like a big monumental thing that we do, like an event.
Yeah.
Uh, it doesn't. We don't realize, oh no, this is a moment to moment, day by day kind of thing, and that's exactly what self awareness is. It isn't having just a handful of big insights about ourselves. It's about knowing ourselves so intimately on a moment to moment basis that we're always checking. Not even that we need to check in with ourselves, because we're so present, I guess, with ourselves
Yeah.
at all times, that we and we trust, we honor that. But we know we're able to validate ourselves, and we know which way to steer, like
Yep.
what nourishes us, what drains us, what we kind of need to do next. um
It's powerful.
the
It
course,
is.
yeah, it's absolutely game changing.
I was just thinking it's a game changer.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you something. One of the things that has been really helpful for me as well with stress management, and this sounds so silly, but really works, is that when you get to that place where you're like holding on for dear life, you're like this,
Hmm.
take 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and think of 10 things you're grateful for. And then while you're at it, because you're a survivor, think of three things you love about yourself. It makes a huge, it sounds so silly, but if you take the time to like write it down or even just speak it out loud or just think it in your own head, you'll be shocked at whoa, dang, you'll be shocked at how quickly your vibration can change, and you can start to then feel a little more in control.
Mhm.
That's just another thought I had regarding the that whole thing. So
Yeah, it's huge. Gratitude, gratitude really is like the antidote to fear.
yes,
And it gets us out of that fight or flight mode, and it brings us back into those feelings of security, because we're focusing on everything that's stable basically in our
yeah,
life, that we're thankful that for the health that we do have, or the money that we do have, or the food that we do have, or um, the just the little wonderful things, clean hot water,
hmm
these kinds of things, access to medication,
hmm
um,
a pillow,
a pillow. Yeah.
yeah,
These kinds of things, it can really help to calm our brain down, and just get us out of that level of anxiety.
absolutely. And JJ brings up a really good point here. I'm learning I need to double check or question my initial thoughts on many things. And I want to just clarify why I said that's a good
Mm.
point, because that I think is intentional thought or intentional vibration management, where I always tell everybody, give yourself a couple weeks and go through it and really, pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to what you're thinking and feeling, and intentionally, try to stay reframe stuff so that if you see a situation that's difficult, let's say that you're still in the relationship with a narcissist and you're in the middle of love gaslighting or whatever. Well, you deal with that, you gray rock, whatever, and then you're still stressed out about it. Of course, you're stressed out about it. Well, maybe instead of focusing on that, you can like secretly start looking at apartments online and scrolling through and seeing which ones, how would I decorate this one or whatever, because
Mhm.
you're then, dreaming yourself out of it. Sort of. I mean, it's not just dreaming, but it's a way to sort of start to focus on what you can control, which hopefully is eventually your escape from that situation, and to imagine the good parts, like decorating a new place or whatever. You know what I mean? Or even, if that's not the thing, then maybe you're looking at um, ways you're going to redecorate the existing house you're in when you throw them out. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Whatever it is. A lot of times I'll tell people in that situation, go pick up something cheap, like a that you love. Something, it doesn't have to be cheap, but I was poor when that was going on in my life. So I bought an $8 candle holder from Pier One Imports. I loved it. I still own it today, but it's broken. But I had it for years on my entryway table. You know what I mean? And it was, yeah. Anyway, oh, Jeanette says vision board. Absolutely, yes.
Mhm.
hmm Good stuff.
Yeah, that vision board is a really great tool, to help with self-awareness, to kind of
Yes,
figure out where are our priorities, and what are we wanting to move towards in this next chapter in our life.
yes. It's
And
powerful.
uh yeah, self-awareness, I was actually talking to somebody about this earlier today. It's one of the many things that's not taught in school.
Yes,
And I really don't think that anybody has a solid grasp on it, because it's not taught. And most people don't even start to question it until their life really isn't working for them.
right. And
And we tend to call that a midlife crisis.
mm,
But I think that's why so many people hit that midlife crisis, is because they realize that they've been profoundly unhappy for a long time, but they're trying to put on a happy face.
yes,
And
and
then
then
they
it's
just, yeah.
yeah,
And then they're over pretending, they're like, I'm just done with it. I'm going to go out and do things that I feel are going to make me happy.
yeah. I'm with you on that, and I think that's very important. Wow. Um, your moderator might. There's someone in your chat that you may want to remove the comments on.
Oh, okay. That's
uh,
weird. I'm,
it's
I
up
thought it was,
high. Yeah, it's there are threats and stuff. Anyway, just one or
oh,
two, not at you, but
okay.
things I wouldn't necessarily want to have in my chat.
Okay.
Do you see it at the top?
Let's see. Can you give me the first letter of the name I'm looking for?
It's S.
Okay.
It's right above JJ's comment about it seeming key to work on our wholeness before relationships.
I am looking.
Anywho, while you're doing that, I will check for any new questions. Oh, Sarah says she had an EKG test this morning. They said I'm fine, but my chest aches, like literally feel like dying from heartbreak. Too much, but I'm weak. Sarah, that can be stress. That can also be like a panic attack. I'm glad that you went to the doctor. Um, I when you feel like that, you need to take time for like deep self care. Like you know, you might want to make another appointment with the doctor, first of all, to go in and check in and make sure that you really are okay. But other than that, it's like this is when you're to this point, I personally think this is almost emergency self care time, where you get checked out, make sure there is really nothing physically wrong. And then maybe, I don't know, you go on a retreat or you go, grab your best friend and like my best friend and I, when we used to get to that point, we used to like, before we had kids, we used to go rent a hotel room and for the weekend, just the two of us and sit around and hang out and talk and whatever we did for the whole weekend. And it was really therapeutic. You know what I mean? We would just
Mhm.
talk the whole weekend. So anything like that. But what are your thoughts for Sarah? Did you find that one thing yet?
I think I did.
Okay. Um,
Yeah. I like your idea of a hotel room.
it's good stuff. We should do that, Tina.
I know, we totally should.
I
I
know.
think that would be great.
We could
Um,
meet in the middle. I mean, it's a good idea.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
It
We
really would.
should. We should. Real quick, I did want to address a comment by
Mhm.
Sebastian who was saying his former girlfriend is now engaged. I know he's been in a lot of pain from this relationship for quite a while. She's moved on quickly, and it sounds, I think it just sounds like he's really hurting
Mhm.
from this. And Sebastian, I just want to validate you. It's understandable that you're angry and that you're hurt. And, um, you know, it's understandable to have those feelings of rage and anger at being, um, that, at feeling betrayed, at feeling, um,
Abandoned.
yeah, abandoned like this. And I know you've gone through a lot. And um, I would encourage you to think about constructive ways to get that anger out, um, because she's, and I know those emotions are there. They're powerful. They're very raw. That she's moving on. She's engaged. Um, but my goodness, this is probably one of the best things that could happen, for you to not be for this relationship to have ended and for her to be moving on, um, and not have this in your life. I know it's incredibly painful now, but I'm hoping that because she is on to the next guy, uh, that this in some ways will help you to kind of, give you some closure on this. And this, you deserve somebody that is going
Who will
You
love you the
deserve
way
an
you deserve it.
emotionally yeah, you
Yeah.
deserve an emotionally safe relationship, somebody who cares about you, validates you. Um, there's that reciprocity. It sounds like what you've said in former chats. This is the kind of relationship that you want with somebody, and they're out there. But unfortunately, sometimes we just get tangled up with some of the wrong people, and these relationships just really reinforce everything that we don't want, that doesn't work for us.
Yeah. And let me, if I can, jump in really quick.
Yes, please.
Something I recently talked about this, but something that one of my clients told me was that when we first started talking, I said to her something like, I promise you that one day you're going to look back at this and realize this is the best possible thing that could have happened to you. She was angry. And she told me
Yeah.
later, she didn't even tell me that day because she was a codependent. So she shut her mouth about it. But later she told me, I was so mad at you when you said that. She said, I thought you were so insensitive. What a bitch, and so on and so forth. And then she said, but now I know. She said, we went through our coaching and everything. She said, but now I understand what you meant and you were right. And so don't feel angry at what Dana just said. You will look back and you'll see, maybe when you meet the person of your dreams, you will
Yeah.
see that this really could have been the best thing that ever happened. Stay strong.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yep. And this pain and this rage that you're feeling, one of the things that helped me when I was going through all of this was to realize all of this pain and rage isn't because we loved the person. It was because there was a lack of love
Yeah.
present. That pain and anger is your healthy side of you trying to keep yourself safe. It's saying this is not for you. This level of kind of disregard and hurt is not, you deserve better than this. And I hope that you were hearing Angie when she was saying that, because I get how invalidating that can feel
Yeah.
when we're feeling so emotionally raw and somebody does say, oh, this could be the best thing that happened to you.
Feels like almost insulting.
Oh, absolutely. Like you just
Yeah.
want to go punch that person in their face. I get it. But I just, you're untitled to
Unfortunate.
feel the way you feel. It's completely understandable. I think we've all been there. I remember when I was going through that, I had so much anger. I had never felt rage before. And that was a scary, scary feeling to have.
Yes.
And it can truly feel like you turn on this fire hose and you don't know how to turn it off and you don't know how to direct it and do anything. So I would encourage you to try to stay ahead of that anger, because you don't want that anger to be unchecked and then cause worse things to happen, you know,
Yes.
um, in your life. So I would strongly encourage you to think about ways that you can think about constructive ways that you can pour that anger into, working out, I don't know, learning about the stock market, uh,
Learning how to paint.
learning how to paint, right? Write a book, giving
Poetry.
yourself an outlet
Yeah.
to pour this stuff into.
Yeah. Don't get yourself in legal trouble for this person. Don't do
Absolutely.
that.
Do not let this relationship ruin your life. I think that's
Seriously.
one of the biggest things is making that declaration, not just a decision, that's for everybody here.
Yes.
That declaration here and now that you are not going to let that relationship or what happened to you ruin your life. They've taken enough. They don't get that too.
Preach. Yes.
Seriously, make
100%.
that declaration and then you get busy figuring out ways that you're not going to make this ruin your life.
That's right.
That, okay, no, you know what? Damn it. I'm going to get organized. I'm going to go to the gym. Whenever you start getting upset, you drop and do 10 push-ups.
Yeah.
Burn that, put that energy to good use it for your highest and greatest good.
And may I say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
The very best revenge that you can ever get against any toxic person is to go on and live your best life and like they don't exist. That's
For
it.
freaking real.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Chin up. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give any more of your life to that person.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Mhm.
These situations when we're feeling this angry and it just keeps coming, it just feels like insult after injury after insult kind of a thing. These are the times where we have to really dig deep
Yes.
and make those conscious decisions about what kind of person are we going to be,
That's right.
you
Make
know?
Yeah, and be intentional. Don't just be
Yeah.
willy-nilly letting life happen to you. Choose it. You
Yep.
can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You can do this. You can take all of this hurt and this pain and you can use it towards your highest and greatest good.
Yes. And I hope that you do.
I do too. Yeah. Hugs, man. We're thinking about you.
Yeah.
And I'll have my live stream again tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I hope you show up to that and we can talk more about things, okay? But you're not alone in this. Just keep reaching out and just sending some good energy your way.
You matter. Don't forget. You're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You matter. It's not right. It's not fair what happened, but you can take all this and use it towards your highest and greatest good. Because what else
Absolutely.
is there? Really, what else is there? Don't let it sink you. You just keep moving forward.
I'm with you 100% on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess with that said, we need to wrap up. Thank you so much for being here, Angie. And as always, and thank you everybody else for the discussion and for your questions and everything. We'll see you next Tuesday over on Angie's channel. So Angie Atkinson across on YouTube and across the internet. And yeah,
We'll see you there.
okay. Sounds good. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Dana. See you
Okay.
soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.